This morning, ESPN.com published an article by our Baxter Holmes detailing the dysfunction of the Lakers organization, specifically under the leadership of Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka. And it's almost impossible to do justice all that is in the story. Let me give you a sense of what's in it. Magic Johnson is portrayed as an intimidating boss who routinely threatened employees' job security, a stance that belies his charming public persona. Rob Pelinka is perceived in the story to have trouble with the truth. He often says things that simply aren't true when trying to make a point. That dishonesty has caused a crisis of faith in the Lakers GM. And then there's Jeanie Buss, seen as an absentee owner who has relinquished decision-making to others, including Pelinka and her close friend Linda Rambis. And LeBron James' agent, Rich Paul, is depicted as one of the biggest decision-makers for the team, often on the behalf of his biggest client, who, of course, is LeBron James. He also represents Anthony Davis, among many others. All of this is just the latest in what has just essentially been, to use the phrase that is common these days, a dumpster fire for the Lakers. So again, as we've had a little time to sort of roll through all of this, Jalen, what do you imagine LeBron James is thinking, and what are you thinking?
LeBron James is not going to panic, because as long as he's healthy, and worst case scenario, if they have the young talent that they have, the Lakers are going to be good next year. I just want to be a person that says that. Also, I want to just go through the layers of people you just discussed. For young people that want to work in corporate America and or any profession, your boss at some point in time is going to be considered intimidating. Just comes with the territory. When you talk about Rob having problems with the truth, that's what happens when you work in a front office, I'm sorry. They're not going to always tell players and or who work with the team the truth, because you don't know the next domino. As far as Jeanie being an absentee owner, we see owners like Jerry Jones who are very hands-on. Most owners are absentee, actually. And lastly, Rich Paul being a decision maker with LeBron James for an organization, that's been happening since the beginning of time. When you have a superstar player, he should be involved in the decision making of a basketball team, especially an iconic figure like LeBron James.
So to be clear, I want to make sure I understand your point, because I think this is important. You're saying that while all of this does paint a dysfunctional picture, that maybe it is being blown up because it's the Lakers, because of the enormity of the personalities that are involved, and you don't think this is all that far removed from normalcy in an organization like this?
These are the things that are happening in franchises that don't have success. We're just not used to seeing it with the Los Angeles Lakers, because they have 16 championships and they once had Dr. Jerry Buss presiding over the organization.
What do you think?
Well, it's a tough situation, but like Jalen said, as long as LeBron James is healthy, right, and they go into free agency with a plan, and they execute that plan to get the best player that's going to fit with their system, then they're going to be a good team. And then you know what happens when you're winning? You don't get the negative talk, okay, like they had this year when they didn't make the playoffs. We talked about how bad the Lakers were, the dysfunction, this, that, and the other. All they have to do is go out there and win games, and they're going to be fine.
Yeah, I think that they always say that winning is the best deodorant, and I understand that part of it. There are pieces in this story, however, that are just beyond the norm. And again, there's a lot to digest in it. But there was a story, if I may briefly. Rob Pelinka, who was the general manager, was Kobe Bryant's agent, and he apparently got up in a meeting and told all of the players a story about Kobe, his legendary focus, that after seeing the movie Dark Knight, he said he was fascinated by the way Heath Ledger sort of inhabited the character of the Joker, and said to Rob Pelinka, set up a meeting for me with him, and that the two of them went off and had dinner and talked about how he had played the Joker. And unfortunately, for the purposes of this story and otherwise, Heath Ledger was dead before that movie came out. So this obviously could not have happened. Why are you looking at me like that?
People always embellish stories.
It's one thing to embellish a story. I mean, he told a story in front of a group of people that Kobe Bryant had dinner with a man who was dead.
I hate to tell you guys this. When you're watching somebody speak to a group of kids or to a basketball team, people embellish stories.
Embellishing a story.
It happens.
Okay.
I promise you it happens.
Is the message that we're sending here, if you're going to make up a story about two famous people being together, make sure both of them are alive at the time that it happened?
Yes.
Correct. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct.
The older you you get, the longer the walk was to school.
Yeah.
That's an absolute fact.
They're called tall tales.
No one knows less about pop culture than I do, and even I knew that Heath Ledger
You got to
was
get it
dead
to
when that
Laura,
movie
man.
came
You got to
out.
get to Laura.
Yeah, come on.
See if you can make
She's
some
our
sense
cool
of this.
factor.
Listen, I'm actually glad that we got to the bottom of that, so thanks for doing that, guys. But we do have Jay Will and Tom Thibodeau over here, and you had a point you wanted to make about LeBron's agent, Rich Paul.
Yeah, I just don't like the fact that his name is being dragged in the dirt. Now, look, nobody said anything to David Falk when David Falk was helping Michael Jordan make those same kind of decisions with the Chicago Bulls, with Phil Jackson and Jerry Reinsdorf. So, all these things, Rich Paul is in a position to do so. Him riding the team plane, well, that needs to get consent from the front office. It's not like Rich Paul is just deboing his way and saying, I want to ride in the team plane. So Rich Paul is just doing what Rich Paul has always done, which is work with the biggest star in the game of basketball.
Okay, and just to be totally clear, you are friendly with Rich Paul, right? So
I'm friendly with everybody.
And you're good with saying that, so we'll go ahead and make sure people know that, as you are. Now, I do want to hit on one other specific thing from this article from Baxter Holmes, because Tibbs, we were talking about this a little earlier on amongst everybody. There's parts where they talk about how Pelinka and maybe Linda Rambis even, or Kurt Rambis, were in some meetings at halftime with the team, in Luke Walton's meetings with the team, and some people said that was bizarre and that you don't normally see that. From your experience as a coach and in organizations, is that something that you see regularly?
Well, I know from my experience that never happened. You only have 15 minutes when you get into halftime. 5 minutes, the coaches are reviewing film, the players are in the locker room. Then you have 5 minutes with your team, and then you send them back out. So it's a very tight time sequence. So that is unusual. But there are some teams that I guess that have done that. But again, it comes back to leadership in order. And to your point, how do you build trust? The only way to build trust is with the truth. So, obviously there's a lot going on there.
What do you think about the fact that maybe there were people in the front office that were in these meetings? Does that bother you if you're a coach or even being a player on some of these teams?
I just don't put anything past the organization.
Yeah.
I mean, and Jay Rose alluded to it on the desk. When you're going through changes like that and there's so many cooks in the kitchen, a lot of different things happen. And I think that comes with management. If your management has experience and understanding how to deal with that, then they dictate what their terms are. I just don't think there was one person. There were multiple leaders in this organization.
Yeah, I do want to follow up quickly on something that Jalen brought up, too, about how maybe this isn't that big of a deal overall. Maybe some of it's being blown out of proportion. Do you guys agree with any of that?
Oh, it's a big deal because it's the Lakers.
Yeah.
That's the reason why it's a big deal. Okay. It's in L.A.
Yeah, I think, again, it comes back to the leadership part of it. They have to get onto the same page, and there can only be one voice going to the owner. And at some point, you have to be able to say, you can't listen to those other people. You have to listen to me. I'm the basketball expert here. That person, the president, has to get discuss, debate with everyone that's working within the organization, and then make the final call to the owner, and then the owner will make the final decision on what you're recommending. What
will be fascinating is Magic Johnson with Stephen A. Smith and others on his SportsCenter special tonight.
Fearmongerer? Fearmongerer? I don't know about that.
We'll
see. Say things about Magic. I don't know if he's a fearmonger.
We'll see what he says in rebuttal to that. Let's get back to the NBA Finals, Greeny.
Yeah, so we are a couple of days away from Golden State and Toronto, and the Warriors made it official yesterday that KD, Kevin Durant, will miss Game 1 at least, still nursing a strained right calf. He's not even traveling. The notion that he would play in Game 2, while they've said nothing about it officially, seems unlikely. However, that guy, DeMarcus Cousins, is much closer. He's now listed as questionable for Game 1. Here's Steve Kerr on that circumstance.
If this were the regular season, this would be simple. Put him back in the starting lineup and give him his minutes and let him work his way back in, find his rhythm, and it'd be an easy one. But we're going into Game 1 of the finals, so he's scrimmaged twice. He's working on his conditioning. The good news is his body feels good, his quad feels good, but he's working his way back into shape. This is not a simple dynamic for him, and I feel bad for him. This is one of the reasons he came to this team, was to play in the playoffs and hopefully go to the finals. And here we are, and he's just coming back with Game 1 just a few days away. It's not an easy position to be in.
So again, that's DeMarcus Cousins, and they will make those decisions, and we'll talk about that further in a moment. But I want to start with Kevin Durant, because Jalen, you haven't been here in the last couple of days, and when last we spoke, you were telling me you believe the Warriors need Kevin Durant to win the championship.
They do.
Now, at that time, we assumed, I certainly did, that it was Milwaukee they'd be playing. Now that we know it's Toronto, we know the matchup. Do you stay with that? The Warriors will not win this championship if KD does not come back.
I do stay with that, and here's why. The two players that you're talking about returning for the Golden State Warriors, both are all-stars that play up front. This allowed Draymond Green to have more room to operate and flourish against the Portland Trail Blazers. However, he was going against Collins, Harkless, and Leonard. In this series up front, he's going to be going against Kawhi, Siakam, Serge Ibaka, and Marc Gasol. All experienced, tough-minded players and defenders that can be caught in a lot of switch situations. They can frustrate Draymond. They can work on the foul situation against him. I know Looney's played quality minutes, but I think up front, if those two guys aren't returning, in particular KD, I get the advantage, plus home court to the Toronto Raptors.
DJ, can I ask you a question sort of from a coaching perspective now?
Sir.
So now you get to game 3 and you're back home and Kevin Durant is medically cleared and he's done almost, and again, I'm just supposing this might happen. I don't think it's even the expectation. But if it does, understanding all of the psychological dynamics that are in play, do you just plug him right back into his regular role immediately, no questions asked, or is there another path you have to consider?
Because it's Kevin Durant, I'm putting him right back into the starting lineup because I think he needs to get comfortable with the situation being out as long as he has, and that's the only way I'm going to get him comfortable. Bringing him off the bench is a no-no. We're talking about the second best player in the NBA here. So from a coaching perspective, I got to get him in there and get him as comfortable as he can because the series is getting shorter.
So Jalen, he's been there 3 years. So would there be any time, are we talking about some time for everyone to get comfortable back together again? He's been out, at that point he would have been out close to a month. Will there be a period of time in which they don't look right? Will it be hard for them to work KD back in is what I'm asking
Yes,
you?
because again, if they win without KD, it elevates Steph and diminishes Durant.
Right.
If they lose without KD, it validates his move to go there. The conversation, and he hears it because he's tweeting about it and he's IGing about it, is their offense better without him and or can they win without him? The reason why we're asking that question is because it's different.
Yes.
And you do need a chance to institute what's going to be different for one of the best scorers that we've seen in the game. It's going to isolate from the elbow. It's going to isolate from mid-post. That's going to slow down a lot of these dribble handoffs that you see, a lot of these single doubles that you see. It's a different basketball team offensively.
Yeah, I think there is a growing sense that we will not see Kevin Durant at all in these finals. Boogie Cousins is a different story. Laura, to pick it up from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get to Boogie in just a second. But Jay, Will, you had an interesting point. Tibbs did too, just about how important from an overall free agency standpoint it is to try to play KD if he's at all ready.
Yeah, and I'm speaking from my perspective, not speaking for KD or from their camp on this one. If you're Bob Myers, who runs their team, you want to win a championship regardless. But you would rather win a championship with KD playing in those type of games because I think that helps you as it relates to free agency during the month of July. I think the narrative within itself, if KD doesn't play and they win a world championship, will explode for the same exact reason you heard Jalen just mention. It becomes this team can do it without Kevin Durant. We don't need him, and that doesn't need to be the case at all. You'd rather have greatness together instead of just singularities in that purpose, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be a seamless transition. He starts immediately. They've shown that they can adapt. The versatility of their lineup, which is one of their great strengths, allows them to do different things like this. But Kevin, big picture, their best chance to win is with him. The best chance to keep him long term is to play him right away. That's who he is. He's an MVP candidate.
Yeah, and of course, this is with Kevin Durant not having participated in basketball activities with the team on the court, so we don't know where his health is. It does not seem, to Greeny's point, like he will end up playing in this finals as of right now, but who knows? We'll just see. Let's quickly on Boogie, as he comes back in, as they incorporate him, you had an interesting point, Tibbs, from hearing from Steve Kerr. You don't think he plays that much?
Well, the challenge, you're incorporating someone who's been out for an extended amount of time. So I think you have to see where he is. And the only way to see that is probably bring him off the bench, play him in limited minutes, see how he handles that, and then you go from there. But it's a great weapon to have for them.
I agree. I mean, he's a perennial all-star. He's one of the best players they have in the game. I think it's a situation for him when he comes and he plays. He can still give you buckets down low on the block. He can still space out your defense with knocking down threes. But I think this team moves differently when you have Draymond Green. We talked about this before. He's the first true point center I've ever seen in the game. I think with him on the court, it forces Toronto to play a different way, and it doesn't allow them to take advantage of their size down low.
At the end of the day, it's really an embarrassment of riches that the Warriors
Yes, it
have
is.
because here comes Boogie Cousins back. And you said this earlier. People have forgotten about Boogie Cousins because he's been out since April 15th. He's a really good player. Let's get up and go here this morning as we get to game 1 of the Stanley Cup final. The Bruins rallied from 2 goals down to defeat the Blues 4-2 and take a 1-0 series lead. Most notable play came from Torrey Krug, who after losing his helmet in a scrum in front of his net, skated the length of the ice without his helmet to level a Blues player. Game 2, Wednesday in Boston. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Also to baseball, huge night for Cody Bellinger versus the Mets. Not only did he crush his 19th home run of the year off Jacob deGrom, but Bellinger threw out 2 runners on the bases. First nailing Michael Conforto at the plate in the first inning, and then gunning down Carlos Gomez at third, trying to tag up in the 8th. The Dodgers end up winning that one 9-5. And how about this? The University of Virginia is celebrating another national championship this morning. Of course, they won the basketball national championship in college basketball, but this is lacrosse. They're winning their first lacrosse title since 2006, knocking off defending champ Yale 13-9 on Memorial Day in the national title game. It is the school's 6th title in lacrosse. Back to football, Greeny.
That is right, because today is 100 days until the NFL's 100th season kicks off. The year will begin Thursday, September 5th in Chicago as the Bears host the Packers, the longest standing rivalry in pro football history. And it gives us an opportunity, just a good reason to start looking ahead to the football season, because training camps obviously come around a lot sooner than that. And we can dive into some of the big storylines here. And I've got Dominique and Dan with me to do it. And I know I'm just going to get you right there immediately, because I just asked you what are some of the things that you were looking towards as you start anticipating this season. I know you were starting right at the top of the NFL draft.
I expect Kyler Murray to rip up the NFL starting week 1. This is a guy that, so first of all, just looking at their team, still has Larry Fitzgerald playing at a high level, and Christian Kirk, who was a rookie last year, was coming on, got hurt. He's back healthy. Then they had 2 really important draft picks when they got Hakeem Butler and they got Andy Isabella. Andy Isabella is a receiver out of UMass who ripped up SEC competition multiple times. This is a talented offense. You're adding him to a team that is 2 years removed from having David Johnson as a 2,000-yard back and running and receiving the football. So it's a much more talented team than people think. And everyone goes oh, their offensive line. Kyler Murray is going to make up for a lot of those issues. 4 out of their first 6 games are against bottom 10 defenses. He's going to rip up the NFL early on.
Kyler Murray. But the reason why he's there is because they were the worst team in the National Football League last year. If you think they're going to rip up the NFL, then you think Kyler Murray is going to be the MVP of the league, because he's going to take the worst team in the league from. And I understand and respect the people they added, but he is the only major addition, and they are not going to get that much better. Quarterbacks who have great rookie seasons, they come into good situations like Roethlisberger, Dak Prescott, those type of guys, and you could even throw Mahomes in there, even though he wasn't a rookie. His first year was phenomenal because they come into great situations with experienced, talented coaches and great players around them. That's not what they have in Arizona.
There's going to be some newness to Arizona. I expect Arizona in the preseason to do nothing, be boring, not be successful, and then week 1 unload on the teams, because there's not going to be a lot of film. They're going to go back to college, but there's going to be a lot of new wrinkles that Kingsbury is going to be able to add, and teams are going to be like, what are we doing?
You've just said the most important word in all of this, and that is Kingsbury. If indeed this happens, it will not just be about Kyler Murray. Right. But if this offense is explosive and outstanding, all of a sudden, the entire league will be looking for the next Cliff Kingsbury, which would be the ultimate irony, since everyone was critical of the hire in the first place, and he didn't win on the college level consistently.
I have no questions or concerns about this team being good offensively and scoring points. Can Kingsbury lead men? Can he run the organization? Can he get a defense to play good? This team will score points.
He couldn't succeed in college. Not even
He never had a defense in the top 85.
He's the head coach.
He may not have that in Arizona.
He's the head coach.
Arizona's got better pieces than people think this offseason.
They have the 85th best defense in the National Football League.
Why are you going to blame the defense when he was the head coach? That's his team. He is now the head coach of this team. It's no chance that he's going to come in here and somehow do in the NFL. He's going to do in the NFL what he couldn't do in college in his first year. Maybe he'll grow into that, but he's not that now. And Kyler Murray is not good enough to make him that.
Vance Joseph is the head coach of that defense. They've got Swearinger. They've got Robert Alford, who are 2 good pieces. I'm telling you, Arizona is going to be a better football team than people think.
Swearinger and Alford.
And Kyler Murray is going to light the league on fire in September.
Kyler Murray, your rookie of the year. Will he be the offensive rookie of the year?
He's the MVP, too, if he's going to play as well as he
Andrew Luck, man, pay attention. First hour.
It's 100 days till the start of the 100th